How better go there, how better go there, how better go where, how better go here, how better now, how better go.
My number one real estate investing strategy. Welcome back. Now, everyone wants to make money in real estate, and real estate sure offers the investors a lot of choices. Now, in this video episode, I'm going to reveal some little known but highly lucrative methods for making money, and I'm going to show you one that's been my favorite for some time. Now, most people don't know how to make money with tax defaulted real estate. So I chose this about 30 years ago, and for the last 30 years, I've been involved in tax defaulted real estate. So I know there's lots of promises by late night television promoters and on the internet, but I'm an educator, investor, and an author. So we're going to take it from that perspective. So I'm going to give you some creative ideas, all from the investor's standpoint. Now, my intention is to show you the possibilities on how to make small money investments, but make some big money. So we want a small investment. Let's try to make some big money. So if you'll pay attention, kind of embrace the ideas that I'm giving you here, that I'll be discussing, well, I can tell you, this could be transformational if you get it. So you just got to try to hang in there for a few minutes and see what I'm doing. Now, I've tested dozens of strategies. I've tried tactics. I've tried techniques. I've shifted and I've moved around a lot to find out on dozens of deals how to make what really works best, how to make the money in the real estate business. So this business is unique because tax defaulted properties are the same kind of real estate as traditional real estate, except they're tax defaulted and people haven't paid their taxes. Okay, so I'm Ted Thomas, and for the last 30 years, I've been involved in tax defaulted real estate. So in this episode, I'm going to show you my number one real estate investment strategy. I think you'll like it, and if you follow along with this, you'll see how there's very little competition and a way to make a lot of money. So it's taken me over 2 decades of testing and adjusting and making mistakes to develop and kind of perfect this system. And I'll try to give you a little bit of that as we go along. Now, tax defaulted real estate is taking place in all 3,000 counties across the United States. Now, the properties basically have been seized by the local government. In other words, they were confiscated. Now, the local government doesn't want the property, so what are they going to do with it? They're going to auction that property off.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? How better go 1,000.
They're mandated by the legislature and the board of supervisors of that county to auction the property and get the money that was due on the taxes. So the treasurer is authorized to confiscate. That means they push the tenant or the property owner off the property, and then what they do is they sell it at auction. It's a public auction, and I'm going to talk about that over the next few minutes. So I'll be right back. Okay, what are we talking about today? My number one real estate strategy. What is it? It's tax defaulted properties, and they're regularly sold to the highest bidder at a tax defaulted auction.
How better go there, how better go there, how better go where, how better go here, how better now.
Now, these auctions are open to the public. Anybody can go. Sometimes they're online, sometimes they're offline, sometimes they do both at the same time. But basically, the treasurer is trying to get rid of these properties and get them back on the tax roll, all right? So what they're doing is they're auctioning the properties off for the back taxes, sometimes a little bit more. So you can buy properties at these auctions for 10 and 20 cents on the dollar with no mortgage. So I'll cover that as we go along. Now, this could be a side hustle for somebody. You can make enough money on a tax defaulted property. One property, you can make enough to make your house payments, your car payments, and have a bunch of money put together so you can make that vacation trip to Hawaii. You can do that on one property. So I'm not going to hard sell you on this, but I am going to tell you this is a great way to make money. So I'm going to reveal how you can make honorable and ethical money and take advantage of a hidden market that was created as an alternative investment by the local counties and the state that you live in. All right, now all states have counties, and all of those counties, 3,000 plus counties, auction tax defaulted properties. All right, all the counties have them. All right, now the legislature, they make the laws, they pass it down to the county supervisors, the board of supervisors, and the county commissioners, and then they enforce the laws at the local levels. All right, now at the local level, they're going to go out and they're going to They're going to levy the tax. The tax collector is going to do that along with the treasurer. They're going to levy the tax. If they can collect it, great. If they can't, it's uncollected, then they're going to put the property in default, and then they will ultimately go out there and they'll seize the property. That means they're going to confiscate it and take it away from the property owner, and they're going to sell it at a public auction to the highest bidder. All right, so the bidding can start low. However, the property will be sold to the highest bidder at the auction. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. If you get this right, folks, everything else is going to be smooth. If you get this wrong, you're never going to get anything right and get off the ground in this business. So you got to get it right that you're going to buy at the tax defaulted auction, and you can pay pennies on the dollar, and then you can sell it for anything you want. Now, at those auctions, the treasurer is going to wipe out the mortgage and the deed of trust loan. So these properties are going to be sold at a local level, 5, 10, 20 cents on the dollar. Now, all of these properties were tax assessed. So what does that mean? Well, that means a tax assessor will put a value on it, but the treasurer doesn't have to pay any attention to that value. The treasurer wants to get rid of the property, so the treasurer will start at the back taxes, which could be 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. What I'm really saying is these properties are sold for 60%, 70%, 80% discounts at a tax defaulted auction. All right, anybody can buy at a tax defaulted auction that has money. All right, now, when I say anyone that has a little bit of ambition can get in on this deal. They can claim a property at a tax defaulted auction, and then they can sell it, and that's how they generate considerable amount of money. So this is traditional real estate that hasn't had the taxes paid that the local government wants to get rid of. They don't want the property. They don't want tax defaulted property. They've got all the property they want. So they're trying to get rid of their property, and they're trying to collect that revenue. Now, why are they trying to collect all this revenue? Well, the revenue from taxes on property taxes is what pays the county bills. For example, the county employees, all right, the police department and firefighters, they get paid by that. All the school teachers take care of the schools. In other words, the county's bills are paid with property tax. So the treasurer is trying to get rid of these defaulted properties, and they're willing to discount them 60, 70, and 80% below the tax assessed value. So at this point, you may want to ask yourself, how are you going to sell that? Well, they're not difficult to sell, because what you're going to do is you're going to buy it low. So if you use my system, I buy it low and then I sell it low. Now, by selling it low, who do I attract? Well, I attract those people that want to do fixer-uppers, guys and gals that want to do that. And what about those people that want to do renovations? What they do, they want to take a mediocre house and they want to make a mansion out of it. And generally, people that want to buy properties at bargains want to buy at tax defaulted auctions. Okay, well, everybody doesn't know about it, so you can now feed into this market. You can buy the property at a low price. You're going to make your money when you buy in this business. I can assure you, you'll make your money when you buy, and then when you sell, you get to go to the bank. So we buy it low and we sell it low. So think about this. If you could buy a property for 10 cents, 20 cents on the dollar, then you could advertise on eBay and Craigslist, multiple listing service, Trulia, all those different sites. Well, if you sold it 60 or 70 cents on the dollar, I'm sure you feel pretty darn good about it. So you're getting the idea. We're trying to buy for 10 and 20 cents, and we're going to sell for 50 and 60 cents, and we're going to do that right back into the marketplace. Now, the county needs money, and that's why they're selling it. But how about you? You're going to have that margin to make profit. That profit would help you take care of your family. Okay, now they auction in 3,000 plus counties. They all sell tax defaulted property. Some of those auctions are live, others are online. Sometimes they're doing it both. Okay, so these videos, what I try to do is I try to include some interesting case studies of people that have done this. So I'm going to show you some of those as we go along, and you'll see that these people are buying properties for pennies on the dollar. Now, is everyone a great deal? No, because properties are used and abused at these auctions. Some are just junk. You don't want to buy junk. But some properties just need cleanup and whatever. So in a local county, very close to Tampa, just north of Tampa, Florida, kind of a rural county, one of my students purchased a property for $9,100 at a tax defaulted auction. Now, this was a used and abused property. It was a single family home. It was completely covered with trees, and so you could hardly tell that there was a property there. Now, the tax assessor assessed the property at $91,000. So he bought it for $9,100, and the property was tax assessed at $91,000. Okay, so now using the techniques that we teach in our classes, the student went out and started finding other comparable values before they purchased, and it turned out that the property was worth, at least in his mind, a lot more than what the tax assessor. So the tax assessment was $91,000, but they found properties were worth $150,000 as comparables. All right, so my students sold that property. That's what you want to hear. They sold the property to a fixer-upper group. In other words, people that were tenants already in the property knew other people that knew how to fix the property, so the tenant put $5,000 down and then signed documents to make installment sales on an option to buy it for $150,000. So they paid $5,000 and they owed another $145,000. Now ask yourself, how many deals like that would you like to make? Would that make a difference in your life if you bought one for $5,000 and you sold it for $150,000? Well, of course it would. Now that's just a tiny glimpse of the spectacular things that happen in these auctions. Now, as we go along in these video episodes, I'll try to show you more of those. I always recommend that you get a coach. Now, why do I recommend that? Because you don't know what you don't know, and a coach is really going to help you out. So I always say education is important because of that one reason. You don't know what you don't know. Now, in my experience, when I started doing this, I needed to learn from other people, but I wasn't successful right away. Why not? Because I didn't go out and ask a lot of people questions. If you get into business, I'm going to tell you right now, it can be pretty darn intimidating. And there's a lot of people that have been through things before you, so why not go ask them questions? When I started asking successful people questions, I started writing down the answers. What happened? Well, a lot of good things happened. What happened basically right away, my business started getting better because I was making the right decisions because I was listening to the right people. I always recommend people get a coach. My number one real estate strategy is this. It's buy properties at tax defaulted auctions. So this is a business, when you get paid in this business, you make your money when you buy at tax defaulted auction, but you go to the bank when you sell the property. So that's the part my students really like. These properties are relatively easy to sell. Why are they easy to sell? Because you don't have to be a pushy salesperson. You don't have to do high pressure sales. Why? Because you're going to discount the property. So we're going to buy it low and we're going to sell it low. You're going to find out things happen relatively quickly. Why? Because when we try to sell low, who are we selling it to? Well, we're going to sell it to those guys and gals that, guess what? They like to fix those properties up. We're also going to sell to the people that are buying mediocre houses and they want to make them into mansions. So we're going to buy these properties low and then we're going to sell them low. We're going to make our money on the margin between what we buy it for and what we sell it for, which is very important. All right, now there's a whole other market out there of people that want to buy properties that are not able to get financing. So financing is a big deal. So in a moment, I'm going to discuss that just a little bit more. What am I going to discuss? Selling to those people that are getting rejected at the bank. As I say, my number one real estate strategy is this. Buy it low, sell it low, okay? Now there's another whole market where buyers have money and they have good jobs, but they've been rejected by the banks. Now I'm going to discuss that in depth over this next few minutes. Now this strategy of buy low and sell low is contrarian. However, high value business that really works, and you'll be able to have quite a lifestyle if you learn how to do this. Now this system works because it's been tested and perfected in the trenches. That's where I learned it, with real estate deals that where big money was on the line. You'll be able to do the same thing. All right, for example, one of my students purchased 30 tax defaulted properties and resold them after buying them at tax defaulted auction. Now, these properties were all remarketed to the 25% of the market that's rejected by the bank. That's because they have poor FICO scores. So watch what he did. We're going to go right off of this picture. Okay, here's a typical deal of a tax defaulted property, okay? All right, the property was purchased for $10,000, and then it was resold for $30,000, and there's a typical profit. Now, that's pretty good. But what you didn't see is what I'm recommending today, and what everyone should think about. So using an installment contract, this property was sold for only $5,000 down payment, and then monthly payments for 10 years. Now look how much money is collected. This is the way you want to do the business. Okay, as I said, my number one strategy in real estate is this one. Why am I using this one? Using a simple financing document and process referred to as contract for deed, my students sold the tax defaulted property using signs and low-cost ads on eBay, Craigslist, and Facebook Marketplace. The owner financing technique is called installment sales and is common throughout the United States. Many who the bank rejects are hard workers who have made credit mistakes or are divorced or they had a previous bankruptcy. My credit challenge people, many have high-paying jobs. They've been on the same place working on the job year after year. However, they've got a divorce or something's gone wrong. They're eager and they need housing. Used and abused does not bother them. Why not? Because they have friends and they're going to fix these property up. All right, this was a perfect example of a property in Michigan where they have 67 counties regularly selling tax defaulted auction. Literally hundreds of properties annually throughout the state of Michigan. Don't make the mistake of buying a property that you haven't looked at, all right? You always need to look at the property. There could have been a fire, there could have been a windstorm, there could have been a snowstorm, there could have been any kind of damage to that property. Might be next to a pig farm. You don't want it. Secondly, don't buy a property unless you have an exit strategy. And then finally, I'm going to end with, if you want an auction list, right below me, you can get an auction list. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.